Welcome to another episode of On Top of the Covers. We are a weekly podcast by Orlove dedicated to all the creative visionaries, entrepreneurs, artists, makers, disruptors, doers around the world. We created this essentially just to feature very inspirational stories of people contributing to the culture of music. How they do it creatively, artistically, personally, and professionally. And the goal was because really, industry sometimes has a constraint. We play on the outside of the constraints, and it's really more about how far do the edges get pushed in contributing to essentially music at large, right? And we're living in a very interesting time, digitally connected time, digitally savvy, technologically driven, and there are no more boundaries. And so that's exactly where we're taking this conversation. And for those of you just tuning in, I'm Matt Gottesman, your host, and I'm director of the Orlove brands. And you guys may also remember me from the other podcast that I do, Hustle Sold Separately. And really, we're excited to be doing this. Each week has been so far phenomenal in terms of the types of conversations that we're having. And this is really about, the unconventional, different path to success, if you will, right? And we've got another amazing guest that's coming on today. And, I had a chance to really dive in and look at his background, which is phenomenal. And, we're going to be talking a lot about building and managing multiple brands, which I know anybody listening, whether you are a musician or artist on the art side, or you're on the business and the marketing and the sales and other aspects of building something side, you're going to get a lot out of this because we're looking at the blend between when we're dealing with the arts, how are we managing it, how are we making it resourceful for everybody, and how are we able to expand and be able to do multiple things. I can say as a creator myself and as a business person, visions are great, execution's even better, and having the right people around you is like the key. And I think that's a never-ending process a lot of times. And so I've got an insanely awesome guest, Stefan Schweitzer. He's an entrepreneur, an innovator, experimenter, risk taker. He's founded multiple companies, including Clubbing TV, DJ Center, and we're going to talk about that. He's runs several companies in the music and entertainment industry. He's got several record labels, a music publishing company, a booking agency, 2 thematic TV channels, a video studio, 2 recording studios, 1 FM radio, and 2 nightclubs. And he does not sleep, apparently. So it's going to be one of my first questions I got to ask him. But and he's joining us here, and he's brought his expertise via silent partnerships, being a shareholder in a magazine and a web and mobile app company. When I read this, it went to my heart because 8 years ago I realized the importance of everything I was doing for everybody else, I had to do for myself, and building my online media and doing more things tech savvy allows you also to have really great strategic partnerships, and you don't have to necessarily be out publicly. So I'm looking forward to learning about that from him as well. As I mentioned, founder of Clubbing TV. It's the world's first and only 24/7 HDTV music and lifestyle channel, exclusively dedicated to electronic music, DJs, dance music culture. And Clubbing TV offers live broadcasts from festivals and concerts, live reports from the hottest dance floors around the globe. I've got an idea I want to run by him on that. Interviews with the most famous DJs, producers, and of course, exclusive shows and content gravitating all over the international EDM and underground DJs and events scene. He's also the founder of DJCreator.com. And from audio mastering to graphic design, from Spotify or Instagram promotion, you name it, ghost production, music business consulting, you can find it all on there. I was going through the platform, by the way, and it was amazing. It's a very, very cool concept. I'm all about aggregating the right resources for very specific niches. And so we're gonna jump right in. But Stefan, I really appreciate having you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. No, thank you for having me, actually, and thank you in advance for having to deal with my broken English for 1 hour at least.
No.
So you guys get used to it, right? Having so many guests from around different countries, different continents. So yeah, I apologize in advance. You have the French broken English.
No apologies necessary. And we have amazing conversations with people all over the world. I lived in Europe and in Spain and in Eastern Europe for a while, in parts of France. I don't know French, so no, just grateful to have you here. So as I mentioned before the show, A lot of times people like to do rapid fire questions at the end. We thought we'd just reverse that whole process and do them at the very, very beginning. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, just, whatever comes to mind or whatever maybe you prepared for is all good. But the first question, which is a unique one, is let's say the world was about to be completely wiped out of all music. It's gone and you're only allowed to save 3 albums for yourself. Just 3. And that's it. That's what all you get to listen to for the rest of your life. What 3 albums would they be?
That's a very hard rapid fire question.
Right?
And can I choose the support? Does it have to be like CD or vinyl or anything?
Nope. It could be anything you want. Just, 3 specific albums, if you will.
Good. So I'd say I need something a little bit maybe classic and complex. So maybe the Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, quite classics and a lot of complexity. So I wouldn't get tired hearing it again and again. It's a hard question though. I really like this album from Sixto Rodriguez called Facts, which you may have heard from Searching from Sugar Man, the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I really like this because it's an album that has no really structured standards. It's like just whatever he was feeling like recording. It's not being formatted for any kind of like radio or anything. So and I like the lyrics too in there. So yeah, I would say this one as well. And the third one, it's I eventually may need some kind of techno at some point. I'm I'm from the dance floor, so if I can only choose 3 and then it's gonna last all my life, and I will eventually need some kind of something harder, something techno. So maybe Paul Kalkbrenner, the Berlin Calling, complex enough not to be tired after a few months, and techno enough for jumping alone.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd say those 3. Yeah.
No, those are great choices. And I'm always intrigued by this question because I feel like the approach everybody takes is similar. Like what can I not get tired of? What can get me and take care of the moods and constantly keep me creative and thinking. And so it's amazing. Okay, second question. Name an influential person, living or non-living, that if you could interact with for one night, who would they be? They could be anywhere from history. They don't have to be living.
Well, as an entrepreneur, and because I saw one of these keynotes one time, and I was really impressed by the presence, the guy, by the way he's just taking the audience and doing whatever he wants with it. That would be Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Could you imagine that conversation? I mean, on innovation and just how astral that would probably go with vision, amazing.
Completely. And also I think it's again, maybe like a very simple person, but it's complex at the same time. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I was reading a quick quote in Talib Nassim's book. He also wrote Black Swan, but there was a different book. And it was something about, regular minds will have regular similarities when they hear each other's stories. But it's like either strategic or complex minds or visionary minds will see the differences in each other's experiences and look for them. And so I like that idea, like with Steve Jobs. I just butchered that quote completely, but like I like the idea with Steve Jobs that you get the simplicity of like looking at solving problems, but the complexity of how far can we, expand in the universe on whatever it is that we want to create, and how far can we really go, Oh, amazing. In your opinion, what is the best music-focused film of all time for you? It could be documentary, it could be a film, it could be anything but somewhat music related.
okay, this may sound a little bit silly, but I really liked one movie, one music movie, which wasn't very appealing to most of the audience. That's the Studio 54.
Yes.
I
I like that
really
movie.
liked the way they just like emphasize all the stereotypes of the nightclubs back in the days at this time in New York. So yeah, it's like it's a fun movie for me. I watch it with fun. So yeah, I really like it.
You know, I was a huge
Yeah,
fan of it. Yeah.
have you seen it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And how Mike Myers played Stevie Rubell, like I thought he nailed it. I mean, not that I know Stevie Rubell, but I felt like he nailed the character role really well.
Yeah,
You know?
me too. All the
Yeah.
stereotypes all together in one character, one person is got it.
Yeah.
Is-
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense why he would be the actor for that role, like spot on. So, you know, yeah, I watched it many times. Mm-hmm. And
Good. So I'm not the only one to like it.
what's that?
I'm not the only one to like it.
No, there's a lot of people that do, whether they admit it or not. You know. Great. Okay. And the final question, then we're going to move into, you know, a little bit more about your background, and then, you know, in general, some of the things we're going to talk about. An important book, podcast, or audible that has helped you navigate your creativity or passion or business.
There's this book called The Lean Startup by
Yes.
Eric Rice, which is a very, very good book for people like me having to solve problems all the time and having to deal with complexities and difficulties of running companies, or running companies which you don't really do yet what they will be doing in the future, or in the next few months or few years. And I think reading that book is kind of like making entrepreneurs or persons like me feeling a little bit less alone with their problems, and I think it's very important sometimes to be able to find such kind of books. So yeah, I really liked the Lean Startup.
Such a great recommendation. I recommend it to everybody. The idea of ideate, you know, create, launch, tweak, ideate, create, launch, tweak, movement, because nothing's ever perfect. And the idea of staying very lean in the approach, and just, I put something out, I get a signal, yes or no, yes this way, no that way, and then you keep sticking and moving.
Testing, tweaking, moving, pivoting all the time until you find your business model. And even when you find it, you don't know if it's going to last. So
true.
Especially now, you know, there are tons of business models you can run and can be very successful for a certain period of time, and then you have to reinvent yourself again. So I think that book is very good in that sense.
Incredible. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It resonated with me right when you said, like, even when you find the business model that works best, you have to still plan for, but Moore's law, which used to be 18 months with technology changing, in my opinion, is now like 6 months. Like, you have to be thinking so many steps ahead while staying present and building. So it's an incredible book. It's like one of my top 5 recommendations. So, you know, the first question, I know we're gonna talk a lot about, you know, managing multiple brands. I was looking at your background. It's incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. And I was having a conversation with Matt Orlove, and we were talking about this. I'm like, man, this man is doing a lot of things, has done a lot of things. And the conversation between the two of us even came up about the beauty in managing and having multiple brands, and how they all feed each other, and how they can move independently and cooperatively in a lot of ways too, because they can feed each other. And not, some people would normally think just financially, like, but also creatively. And, you know, it's almost like value chain, supply chain, you know what I mean? Where, you know, oh, well, we have a studio, but we can also resource the talent, but we can also, you know, have a marketplace for other people. It just, you know, the vertical integration, if you will. Right. And, I loved learning about your background, but I would love for you to share, you know, you can go as far back as you want, but, you know, how we got to, where you're at today, the high level overview. And I know you're probably modest, but the world really would love to know, like, how, you're doing some amazing things with these outlets that you created, and it's not always easy creating it. I know the audience would love to hear a little bit more about it.
And running it, I think creating is one thing, running is another thing. So
Amen.
Also, so yeah, don't tell me about it. So background wise, why did this happen? Basically, I started as a DJ long time ago, right? And my educational background is half sound engineer and half international business and management. So I always had those two sides, even starting from my education. One side, which is more artistical, sound engineering. I was DJing to pay my schools, and so on, mixed with the management in the business side. So naturally, at some point, I had this motivation and this idea to build something around music and the business with music, because this is what I really liked. So that's what I did. Basically, I did those schools, sound engineering first, management and international business after that. And then I went to work a little bit in the US with Polygram back in the days in America. Then I came back to France. I started to work for a record company doing electronic music for them, albums, compilations, and so on. And it did quite well. So at some point I say, okay, well, why would I can do it by myself. I don't need to work for another company doing exactly what I was doing pretty much alone, because I was responsible for the whole electronic music department, and another guy was doing the hip hop R&B, and another guy was doing the classical and so on. So I thought, yeah, okay, I can maybe start to do it for me and start the first company, first record label, which was DJ Center. Back in the days, that was in the 2000, where we were selling vinyls, 12 inches, basically. And that was a start, but that's the start of everything.
First of all, I knew there'd be several strong connections in here. I got all my degrees in international business, but I always gravitated towards the art and creativity. I figured that you can bring the two together. And I remember when I was in undergrad, getting my first international business degree, I remember the counselors, the guidance counselors would say something like, what do you want to do with this? And I was like, well, it's got to be tech, and I want to start off in music, and they looked at me like, yeah, I don't know how to help you. I was like, that's fair. That's fair. And that's why, I reached out to all the record labels in the US and seeing where music was going to go distribution wise. I think it's great that you created DJ Center, very innovative for the time. And I know that creating platforms back in the early 2000s was not easy compared to now, to create platforms with coding languages that are way more advanced, but also easier for people to get into. But I hear you, because it's like, when we've got the art and the creativity, but we also have to, at some point, and maybe you see this, and I'd love to get your take on this, as people who own the brand of their work. You were a DJ and you are a music connoisseur. I mean, once a DJ, always a DJ, but ownership, that's where I think the business management comes in. You've got to really treat your art like ownership, or somebody else will take advantage of it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really actually had the same kind of forward thinking, because with the record labels, so when we started DJ Center, we did one record label, second imprint, third imprint, we had up to 8. So with some of the imprints, we were doing brand licenses. So we were licensing brands from famous clubs in Ibiza, Amnesia, Pacha, Space, and we were doing their CD compilations and selling that all over the world. And I was seeing, obviously, that when you have a strong brand, when it's appealing, when it's renowned, when you reach a certain brand awareness, you can do anything you want, basically. So, and not just in your home country, but everywhere. So We've managed, for example, the compilation CD compilations of Amnesia Ibiza for like 17 years in a row, selling these everywhere, even sub-selling licenses for countries that we couldn't reach. So I thought, guys, when you really have a good brand, it's really amazing what you can do with it. So we started to think it's nice to license well-known brands and do products with them, but it's even nicer when you have your own. So that's why we started to focus as well on some imprints with our own brands. And a couple of years later, with a brand that could be our own media as well and could help us to push artists, could help us to sell records, to give a window of exposure to new talents and so on. And this brand became Clubbing TV, the TV channel. So that's the continuation of the story, basically.
I absolutely love it, and I love connecting on this because I remember even back in like 2010, I was doing some work with brands in Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy on the Moet Hennessy side, and they got it right away. I love that. I noticed other brands, struggled with the whole idea of, why would we become our own media company? I'm like, why not? I'm like, do you realize the power you have? And Mercedes and Starbucks at the time, they were already starting to think that way. Mercedes was brilliant. They're like, well, why don't we create community forums and then ask the people what they want? I was like, oh, you're research and development, R&D, market research. That's how they ended up creating the entry level Mercedes, all new car classes based off of listening to their audience because they had the distribution from their media. And,
right, exactly. And because they could learn that their brand was so powerful, was so appealing, so strong, that they could have a total new market doing a lower cost version of the car, which they could sell to families with a lower income. So otherwise, maybe they would have stayed more with the luxury cars. So that's all back to the lean startup. You try, you learn, you study, and then if it works, you keep and so on. So it's the same story as the book.
And to your point earlier too about business models changing, and we could use the Mercedes analogy of they're these markets and they know, okay, what do we do really well? Well, we do customer service really, really well. Well, if people love us for our customer service and stay with us and we have higher retention, chances are we tend to move them through cars. They C-Class, E-Class, S-Class. Yeah. Why not get them earlier on as well and have them more for life? And so, they thought about how do we pivot while still keeping true to the brand's core, its mission, its vision, right? Mm-hmm. And I love what you did, with Clubbing TV and that. It's how do we bring more awareness to these people through a centralized outlet, and create more possibility amongst the music world, in a multitude of ways. And so I love that you did that because I think people struggle with but why? And like, you realize the tension is a very powerful thing when used appropriately, So yeah.
No, but you have to do it with passion. So of course you have to use it in the right way and not just for your own interest and so on. But I think in any case, if you start like an independent company, if you're not backed up with, big funds, big investors and so on, you can only do it with passion because it takes so much time, so much thing to build, so hard to find your business model, so hard to find your team, so hard to find enough ways of earning money in order to reinvest into your project and building it slowly and slowly and slowly. If you don't do it with passion, it's not going to work. You're going to fail at some point, or you're going to get tired. And so I think passion is very important in when it comes to starting your own brand or your own products without the help of industrials or big investors. Otherwise, it's just too hard.
Passion makes it sustainable. I think I know you're 100% on the mark with that, because most things are started without the backing, the funding, especially when it's in a visionary stage, because not everybody can see your vision.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times backers are, well, this has already worked over here. Like I can have a better idea of my return. So that's all I want to invest in is repeat and repeat and repeat. So visionary type things usually are start off alone with the world going, that'll never work. And then it moves into, that looks like it could work. Then it move into like, man, you're really moving. You know? Well, in your experience, I mean, outside of passion, what other things have you learned in, let's say, with the building of Clubbing TV, in its various stages? What did you find from inception into its evolution? Like, what were some of the interesting things that you maybe not had thought about, or you knew it? You know, there's sometimes those moments like, I knew it, you know, as it started to catch on in certain areas, right?
Yeah, yeah, I hear your points. Well, it's a bit hard at the beginning to know where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
The stories of Clubbing TV when we started is because one, we really wanted to have a media on our own, and that's pre digital era where you can get like thousands of followers on Facebook or on Instagram or on YouTube, and then in a way you have some kind of a media, except that you don't know your users and followers because you have no data over them or very few data. But in a way you can have your media this way. But back in the days it wasn't possible. So when we decided to do Clubbing TV, because we wanted to, one, have a media, two, develop our own brand, we were looking for something, of course, in the electronic music industry and global. So we wanted something that could work in every market, in every country. So we knew with the electronic music that we could achieve that because it was just something global, which you can have in so many different ways. But at the end of the day, in Japan, in Tokyo, in Ibiza, in Paris, in Berlin, in London, in Belgium, in Chicago, in Detroit, everywhere in those cities, we had some kind of electronic music. Call it house, call it techno, call it French touch, call it EDM these days, trap music, and so on. There's so many different genres, but there was this kind of like global market for electronic music. So we knew that if we could find a way just to have this media which would speak globally to every country, every market with the same thematic, which would be this music, we would eventually succeed. So this was the idea, and we knew that this would happen at some point because the global aspect of this kind of music wasn't a question. It was a reality. But we didn't know how we could make it move from one country to another and bring brand awareness and develop and launch multiple countries at the same time. That was the hard part. That was the part where we had a lot of questions, inner questions, if we will succeed and how and when. So back to your question, what was the kind of inflection point where we saw that, okay, the vision of going global with such kind of brand and media is actually happening or can happen because we're seeing that this is happening. Basically, it happened with one first pay TV operator, which is a French one called Free. So they have this triple play box, which is the free box, and they were very innovative on this market with a very nice box with a lot of functionalities and so on. And from one day to another, they decided to include Clubbing TV in the box along with the 120, 130 channels that they had. So from one morning to the other morning, I remember it was during the Winter Music Conference in Miami, and I woke up and I got so many messages on my phone and so on, like, hey, your channel is on my TV, is on my box, and so on. And we woke up from having this small media, we started a web TV back in the days, right? And from one night to another, this web TV was a normal TV entering 4 million homes. So the sudden effect of this was like, gosh, that's the way we now. It's known because it's in 4 million homes from one day to another. So if we just replicate and multiplicate those kinds of deals with many pay TV platforms, pay TV operators, telcos, we can make it to have this global brand and this music globally reaching so many markets with our media. So that was really, I think, the inflection point was to know that we could leverage these platforms and this telco to bring the channel to so many homes, so many devices. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. So
that's incredible. It sparked one question. From the time of inception of creating Clubbing TV till the 4 million homes, how many years was that?
3 months.
How many?
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Wow. From creation to
Yes.
4 million homes, 3
Yes.
months.
We
Wow.
weren't prepared at all. So it was, to be fully honest, it was running on a $600 Dell PC. So it was absolutely not prepared to be taken by such a big platform and reaching so many homes. So we suddenly had to rethink everything, all the workflow, all the process, because we spent maybe 6 months developing the content of the channel, the branding, the idea, and it was launched for 3 months on the web before we made it to this platform. So it was absolutely not running on an infrastructure that would have been sufficient and reliable enough to keep doing this. So from one day to another, we had to rebuild everything again with real servers, real playouts, real infrastructure, and not just a $600 PC, home PC, you know.
But you know, it's funny because sometimes you hear people say, well, they worry about things being perfect and being unprepared. And you would say it. I always say, I'm like, you're never prepared. I mean, you're prepared to the best of your knowledge, but on any given day, at any given time, the world, the universe brings you something, and often as a gift, but you hadn't maybe accounted for it. And I always tell people, it's a good problem to have. Oh, we've just validated in the market. We need to move fast.
And believe it or not, it's a big problem for me because I have sometimes I'm a bit of a control freak with quality and so on. So I really want everything to look neat, to be perfect. I can spend like 20 minutes discussing on the color of the comma on the sentence on the web. And that's tiring sometimes for so many people around me and for me too. And when you have to admit that you have to go to the market, you have to test, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not the biggest quality yet. For me, it's a very hard step, but it's important to take it because sometimes you just need to start it and to do it. And then you can tweak it afterwards. You can change it after. You can raise the quality, or there are certain things that you can do along with the flow during the usage, and I think it's important to be aware of that, even if it can be difficult for people like me, because I would spend years preparing and even maybe not even going to the market, because I would feel still unprepared.
And clubbing TV, I mean, I would love to know the evolution of, because a lot of that you did when you're talking about some of the concepts you were even working on pre-social media, if you will, right? I mean, pre-media, the way media is now. I mean, because really, social really started its footprint in the mid to late 2000s and then has just gone crazy since then. I would love to know the evolution of, the internet. Just probably first you had the 4 million TV homes, and then I bet the internet took it from there in its time. Is that what you noticed with Clubbing TV, that okay, when we rethink the platform, how do we an appeal for me, I guess, to back up, appeal for me in international business. And I remember trying to tell this to the back again to the guidance counselor. And she was like, why international business? And she's like, it's a great emerging field, but why? And like, what do you tie it to? And I'm like, well, if you think about technology, we have the ability to connect with anybody, anywhere in the world at any point in time. How incredible is that we can do so at any point in time, and through a medium in a fraction of a second than we ever had before. Now we can move products and services and art and all of these things, and commerce. What does that do for commerce?
Yeah.
And it was fascinating to see her kind of it wasn't a struggle. It was just sort of like I'm like, yeah, but if we simplify it, pretty cool, right? And she was like, yeah, actually it could be. She's like, is that possible? And I'm like, you're the guidance counselor. So I was like, if anybody else comes in with these things, but the reason I bring this up too is, to your point, is that the internet took by storm. In the beginning, it was not as well understood, but the moment that it was, forget it. And here we are. But for Clubbing TV, when did that start to really, did the internet start to really impact it?
When we started, it was like the MySpace era, So we knew that the internet was going to play like a major role in the future, but it wasn't very developed as what came afterwards with just a big boom of the social medias and with the YouTube booming, with Facebook booming, with Instagram later on, and so on. So it was just at the early stage of this. So for us, for Clubbing TV, we knew that we had to start having a presence online. So that's what we started with the web TV, because it was kind of easy to build, even if it was way too early to have any kind of business model online. But we knew that we had to be there, and we knew that for a while, for many years, we would rely on traditional TV. So when I say that, I say triple play, IPTV, cable television, satellite television, the usual, the TV of your parents, the TV of whoever that has a cord or a wave delivering the TV signal, which is not completely agnostic to the device, like the OTT can be these days. So yeah, we knew that we had to rely on those platforms and those players to build our business case and to build the brand and to expand the reach and the distribution and so on. But we knew at the same time that we had to keep being online and digitally available. And at some point that all those digital means and platforms and social networks, they would play a role, not a replacement, but something on top that you can't avoid to have, and that comes with your ecosystem when you have a business or a brand. So that's what we did. We stayed online. We stayed with the cable TV, satellite players. Now we're seeing even a new switch of new connected TVs, all those players, OTT players that are launching everywhere. Not to name it, Samsung, LG, Rakuten, Pluto, all those guys. Mm-hmm. They're bringing another way of consume TV. So now that means that we have a new way of expanding again, which is not the traditional TV and not the telcos. So digital world is there and it's going to stay, and that's for sure. So I think it's very important to deal with that from the very early days, not to be so far when the boom or the digital revolution is coming. And it came.
What was that?
And it came.
Yeah, it did. I was literally just gonna say, I'm like, you epitomize the lean startup. I was taking some notes on what you were saying, and you when you were saying, you wanted Clubbing TV was like, we want to have our media and we want to have our own brand. We want something global that could work in every market. Electronic music, we knew could achieve that, and you said we knew we would eventually succeed. And but what I also liked was the forefront of the mission was very clear. It was we want to have our own brand. It's global. It can work in every market. Electronic music, it can bring everybody together, and it can serve in every market. It was very, very clear. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when you're very critical and directional and clear on the mission and the vision, and you don't tie it to like, this is how it should be done, it allows the flexibility for you to adapt and leverage every opportunity for growth and expansion, such as you guys did. And I love the era that we came from of, I always tell people, we went from Napster to TikTok and everything in between. And even really, I was like at the AOL chat room level pre-Napster, really, 94, 95, But what was interesting to me is because we basically had to, every time a new platform came out, we had to understand how to leverage, because we were at that, we weren't older than the platform development people. We were basically there at every step. We got in that right 2000, 2002, 2004, 2005, MySpace, High Five, Facebook, all of the evolution of all the platforms, right? And I think that we're very, very lucky because we got to see the use case in every step of the way. And I think the fact that you were mission driven and not attached to this is the way it should be done, which is what, a lot of times corporate folk type do sometimes, and not to put down the corporate folk, but no, just that sometimes that there's more than one way to do something. And as an entrepreneur, lean startup entrepreneur, which you did, here's a vision. We're cool however we get there. And there's going to probably be a lot of things we don't know. And when they come out, we'll have to see how to leverage them. You seem very open and flexible to that, right?
Well, I think when you start on your own as an independent, not with a lot of money, it's like the lean startup comes to you naturally, right? So you have to do it that way. You have to experiment. You have to find ways. You have to find tricks. You have to find solutions to be creative in every way. Because in any case, you don't have the money or the manpower or the big team that is necessary to apply a corporate roadmap, which is like something for example, saying, okay, it should be like this and like that and not another way, right? Anyway, you don't have the means to do it. So you have to find all the other ways to find your growth, to expand, and that's why when I read that book, which was probably maybe 15 years after starting these businesses, I really thought, okay, nice. There's someone like actually explaining what I've been maybe doing naturally. So it's quite nice,
Resourceful. Yeah.
Yeah, resourceful. You can put names on the things you were doing,
Yeah.
So that's quite good. But it's always been like this, and you don't even really think about it, because when you're passionate and you just follow the vision that you had at some point, you don't see all those tiny steps and problems and things as something complex. You just see them as the normal life of the brand or the normal growth of the company. And of course, sometimes you're going to be impatient and you want things to go faster and you want to open more countries and you need a studio there and an office there and a team there, and you can't because you don't have the money yet to do it. Of course, it creates a little bit of frustration, but okay, you're independent. You can decide where you want to go next. You can decide what's going to be your next move. So you have pros and you have cons. So for me, as long as you do it with passion, then you can handle the impatience and the frustration, and it may eventually come later on. Yeah.
The art of pivoting, right? The subtle art of pivoting. Everything. I always say to people that it's like, you really want personal growth and development? They go, yeah. And I'm like, be an entrepreneur. It will force you into things that you have to reflect on and you can't dwell in for, you can have your 5 minutes, or even 10, maybe a day tops. But even then, no, I'm like, you have to keep rethinking, keep changing the pivot. And
go for it.
Yeah, yeah. And but you brought up a very good point, which is, the ability to be able to do it with passion. And I think that that's why when you stay focused on the vision and the mission, it's because it's tied to your heart, like the passion of, no, I know why I'm doing this. So because otherwise we can run out of steam when the external factors don't go, our way for the stepping stone for the thing that we want. Although a lot of times when they don't go our way, it's actually a beautiful thing too, I've noticed. You're like, I'm glad it didn't go that route because we wouldn't be able to do this over here, where do you, I still feel like we're very, very young in the game for how far digital can take us. And now we're in this very beautiful new era, which you're seeing with digital music, NFTs, we're at blockchain, and which a whole other, I can geek out on that stuff because I've been in blockchain and crypto for years, but now enjoying what's happening with NFTs and artwork with music and the musicians and things like that. We're young, right? I would love to get your, we're young in the development of how far I think digital really take us, but I would love to get your take on where you see things and what you're excited about.
Yeah, I think there's one thing with the music industry is that it can completely transform from a decade to another. Look back in the days, so many days selling vinyls or tapes, right? Then suddenly the CD came in, and then it was another way of producing, another way of marketing, and another way of making music, right? And then the CD didn't last that long, actually, if you think about it. It lasted a couple of 2 decades, and then suddenly the download came in. So MP3 download, wave downloads, and so on, which last even shorter than the CD itself. And then came the streaming. So all those different steps, the industry had to reinvent completely itself into new ways of reaching the audience, new ways of marketing, new ways of selling, and so on. And what I see is it is accelerating a lot. We've been selling tapes and I'm saying selling, but I should say listening, actually, because we listen first to tapes and vinyls for so many years, and then CD is quite a nice period. But then when you come more and more and more into where we are now, the 2000, 2010, 2020, it seems like the small revolution which we are seeing in the industry are happening faster and faster and faster. So I think there will still be a lot of challenges for our industries in the future years. But I think also that it's opening many doors to a lot of players, a lot of musicians, a lot of fans, a lot of music lovers, a lot of entrepreneurs that can actually come in the music industry and try to do things more easily than 50 or 40 or 30 years ago. So I really like that in a way that we can see more creation, we can see more players in the music industry. But I really also admit that it's quite challenging also to have this industry which is completely changing every 5 years. So
right.
So I think it's pros and cons. Nice, challenging, interesting, complex as well. But I think it will stay in this kind of game changing of the digital industry, which is like every 2, 3, 5 years, there's like a disruptive technology or idea which is redistributing the cards, and it's a lot of opportunities as well, because when the cards are being redistributed, new players can enter. It's I think this is the beauty of the digital thing. It opens the business and the industry to so many different type of players that at the end of the day, for the music lovers, for the creators, there are more opportunities coming, more music being released. I like that thinking that it can be more open to everyone.
I love a lot of what you're saying, and I want to touch on maybe what some of the challenges are. I other than the disruption, I agree with you. I think that we're going to see a lot more creation, a lot more players, and as you said, the cards being redistributed. It's interesting because Web 3.0 is very, very collaborative. We all win.
Yeah.
And typically, many industries under an old paradigm, as you've probably come up through business and throughout the years, and you've seen, yes, we probably share the same integrity of like, we should all win. But, old paradigm business sometimes was, we run this, so we make the most, we win, you lose, and, in the industry, I remember seeing the music industry on the inside a little bit, and how they were making money in relation to the artists. And I would say, starting back in 2000, 2001, I said, listen, like, you can, if you redistribute the costs accordingly and using digital, this is really for Apple iTunes. And I was like, you could actually make more money for the artist percentage wise and make more money on the back end by removing some of the hard costs and things like that. And I remember them kind of looking at me like, huh? No, this is the way it's done. This is how we're going to do things and stuff. And I remember constantly thinking that you don't understand the future of the internet is ownership, individual ownership. And I feel like we're now finally in an age of where I do what I do really well, you do what you do really well, you do what you do really well, and we can all win collaboratively, collectively, and together within our respective talents, skill sets, whatever it is, and whatever we produce and create. So I think it's a very, very unique time that maybe challenges the mindset of how some things used to be done. And especially as you have like all these new players that come in. I mean, imagine you have sometimes like the techies now coming in, right? And we're like, hey, we just created this beautiful NFT, and Grimes, or you can say whoever, hey, we just sold it for several million in several minutes. And then you probably have industry executives go, wait a minute, what? You're like, yeah, the roles have reversed, and now in order for you to learn from them, so that's some of the so I think the challenges are mostly the perspective and mindset. But if they can open up, especially industry executives, they can open up, they can actually see a lot of beauty in everybody winning. But I'd love to know, what do you think are some of the challenges coming up with these rapid changes in the dynamics of the music industry?
I think in our industry, because there's creation, and the music industry and the music is nothing without the content and the content creation. Content is king.
There it is. Yeah.
So in a way, I think for the musicians, there will be always less challenges because they create the content. So they are at the beginning of the supply chains. There's a musician, there's the content creation, there's a music lover, and the connection in between. What's the goal? The music lover listening to the music that the musician has created, right? So that's the goal. Everything in between, everything that we had before, the vinyl factory, the business of the record label, the major company, the distribution, the digital distributor, and so on. You can revolutionize all this any ways of you want, any multiple times in every decade, every 5 years. You can disrupt it 100 times. At the end of the day, it's still the creator and the fan or the listeners or the music lover. So I think it's really challenging for all the people in the middle of the creation chain, right? For them, it's going to be very hard. But for the creative people, for the content creators, I think there will be always way to find a way to reach the audience. And the way I see it, the way I see that the digital helping all this, it's that it comes actually more and more easy in a way to reach your fans and your audience, or at least to find your audience in a way that maybe it wasn't possible before. I'm just going to take the analogy of the radio station or old TV stations. They were running like the same 40, 60 songs a day. So if you do like punk rock in your garage, you have no chance to be played on national radio inside the 40 or the 60 songs. But there are thousands of millions of people loving punk rock. So today, the punk rock creator can find his audience and his music lovers or punk rock lovers via the technology, via the digital revolution, via the internet, via whatever it will become with 5G and so on. So I think for us, for our industry, for our people, for our creators, it's in a way always a good perspective to be able to reach more easily your audience.
Well put. When I think about it, when you said, you got the creator and you got the fan, I think the challenges are the everyone else in the middle. I 100% agree. And, if hopefully they're lean startup thinking, there's opportunity in that because, us creators cannot do everything by ourselves either. And we need help. But I believe the dynamic of, ownership and processes and systems will change, and the number of people needed to make miracles happen will probably be, much smaller. And so there'll be a lot of rearranging and shuffling right in the middle going on as kind of, where do I fit in, or where do I adapt or want to adapt? But, I 100% agree with you. I mean, the creator can instantly interact with the fan, and at any level, because you can be a superstar to 5,000-10,000 people, but those 5,000-10,000 people can purchase every single thing that you do.
Exactly. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Of course, so it's you can make a living with a very niche music production style if you find your core base of fans or super fans. So it's really possible these days. It wasn't 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So it's quite the beauty of it as well, Or who would have said that you can actually do without a currency, without a bank, without a SWIFT doing the bank transfers from one entity to another entity, without a national bank belonging to your national country, right? And then you would do it with a complete digital currency that has a life on its own, without any financial institution controlling it. Yep. Who would have said that 10 years ago?
Bitcoin. Satoshi or whatever, right? Or whatever his name.
Yeah,
I know. No, you're absolutely right.
But he was quite alone saying it.
Absolutely. He was completely alone. People were probably like, this makes absolutely no sense. But you bring up a really great point. And there was, I think I saw, it was like a meme online on Instagram like a few weeks back, and I loved it. And they said one of the largest single transactions for transferring Bitcoin sold for money, I think it was like 400 million or something like that, to the bank, and it showed the bank transfer fee was $2.38. It's like the lowest amount of money you'll ever do for a bank transfer. It's just messing with the national banks and the other things. But yeah, it's you're right. It's this new era, and and to your other point, with challenges, even understanding how these platforms work. I've been diving pretty heavily into NFTs the last 4 or 5 months and really understanding more about them, and now we're seeing them constantly within music. So you got NFTs where you can launch and mint your work, and essentially you can even give away parts of rights to it, but you're always the original creator. Nobody can say you're not. And that's the beauty of blockchain. And then people can contribute to your music, and you can even tie royalties to it. So no matter how far it spreads or gets shared, you're like, please share my work. Go right ahead. I feel great about it.
A controlled open source.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's quite disruptive as well if you think about it. So it's user generated content. It's community. It's controlled, but it's still open source and still very contributive. So that's another good example of something that could be quite disruptive in the future.
Yeah. Incredible. What projects do you have going on right now, or some new things that are happening, or things that you're just been working on? We'd love to know more.
Yeah, we have this live streaming platform which launched has a sub brand of Clubbing TV, so it's called Clubbing Live, Clubbing.live, And we've been bringing this because we want to give the opportunities to DJs, club festivals to be able to come at any time and start a live on an electronic music platform, which is legal and licensed, without having any fear to get like a big content ID kicking you out of the live in the middle of the concert or the show. And that has been possible because we've got all a big series of contracts and rights for clubbing TV, of course, for broadcasting and using music. So we came up with this idea of taking the tech of a live streaming platform, but just something dedicated to electronic music in the respect of the rights, paying the artists, the publishers, the label owners, the copyright owners properly, but giving as well the opportunity to the DJ to expand, expose their work, and find their communities, growth, and it takes a lot of time to grow a community, right? But if you work several years trying to do like regular live streams, posting regular content, and when it starts to boost, then you come up with an account closed because you got a content ID and you've been kicked out of the platform after working like 5 years on it or 3 years on it. We feel that is really unfair. So we wanted to find a way to bring a platform to all those new coming artists, wannabe DJs, bedroom DJs, but as well to the clubs or the festivals we're working with, which would be willing to do more live streamings more often than when we visit them with the clubbing TV team doing live broadcasts, because we do a lot, but we cannot be everywhere every weekend. So we thought, okay, why not doing this platform, and then multiple of them can go live at the same time, and the audience will choose what they want to follow. So that's what we're working on right now.
It's incredible, and you brought up a very valid, very, very valid point. The idea that at any given point in time, someone's platform and community can be shut down is scary to a lot of people. I know a lot of creators, most it hasn't happened to. I've known several people who it did, and some for reasons that by accident, maybe they were tied in. They didn't even do anything wrong. They were just kind of tied into whatever at the moment seemed to be kind of like a trend on some things, and like, you know, a wrong word or something that was said, and it's like, no, I'm actually celebrating this, not. So
have you seen the recent? Sorry, I'm
no, please.
Have you seen the recent problem with the chess, the black and white?
No.
That during a live stream, I think it was a live stream masterclass teaching chess. So there was a lot of reference to black and white pieces, not people, but pieces. So the AI understood black and white people. So they just shut down the whole live, thinking that it was some kind of conversation about
right.
Opposing communities and so on, so opponents and this and that, and of course, black taking the white and white taking the black, whatever. So from the AI point of view, I understand the mistake, but from a human point of view, I understand the stupidity of the AI, right? So this is for me a perfect example of things that with certain platforms, you can never know what will happen to your account or to your content. And I think that's something that will be in the upcoming years a point that we have to take in very, very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I did not know that happened, and it's things like that where, you know, a lot of people get scared with AI and automation overtaking, you know, the world, and I say, well, first of all, the issue in general is that technology, at least in this day and age, and at least what I believe for another century or so, per se, is that technology still needs humans. It still needs humans to, you know, interact with it, use it, leverage it, and all that other stuff. And we place a lot of emphasis on automation and AI to do everything, like put it on and like leave it alone. Well, you can see what happens when it's not also managed. It still needs humans in some capacity, but like, can this be lean startup? Can this be tweaked and done better? And humility and humbleness. Hi, sorry, community A, that should not have happened with the AI. I so-and-so am managing it and that should not have happened. And we're going to go ahead and take care of that. So now we're talking about still needing customer service, right? You know, so
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Where can everybody find out about Clubbing Life, Clubbing TV, you, everything online? Where can they find everything?
So Clubbing TV, the channel, depending on your country, you may find it on your cable, satellite, IPTV, triple play offer. If not on your connected TV, Samsung, LG, Rakuten, Pluto. If not, clubbingtv.com or the iOS or the Android app, Roku. It's pretty easy to find at some point, or to watch. And for Clubbing Live, it's even more easy. It's clubbing.live. It's everywhere. It's replicated on 120 servers around the world, so it should be fast to load wherever you are. And that's straightforward. So it's just connect, get the account, and go live.
It was fast. So incredible. Listen, I really appreciate having you on the show, and also sharing the evolution, like both technologically, globally, professionally, and that constant adaptation. I think that demonstrating that is needed for people to understand that there's no one way of doing things. There's constant adaptation. We have to be careful of our expectations, and we have to be very flexible because things move and change fast, but we can use them for the benefit of what we're doing and not so much worry and fear, and how that affected the thing that we're trying to accomplish at the mission, level. Right. So
absolutely. And I think there's also like a big point which we didn't talk about, which is the business plan, that nobody should be afraid to be completely out of the business plan. And because no one can read the future, right? So you have often maybe a lot of people around you, or investors, or business angels, or seed money, family money, saying, okay, do the business plan. How does it go? Can you show me? And now where are you going to be in 3 years, and this and that? But, maybe at some point it was an interesting conversation to have. But I think these days, you have to get the vision, but you have to get the ability as well to change the vision into something that will work better, or that is more suitable to the market. And in such way, it will completely ruin your business plan, right? So I think that's also something that maybe young entrepreneurs should not that focus too much on, because I've seen rarely business plan to happening completely like they were planted from the beginning. So again,
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. 100, I love when people say, where will we be in 3 to 5 years? Like, can I tell you then?
Yeah.
They go, oh, wait. And
like you tell you, I wouldn't be here talking to you, right?
Yeah. Like if I knew that, I mean, but I completely
you can do that. You don't need anyone, you're perfect and you can do everything, but it's not like that in real life. So
I completely agree with you about, the thing with the business plan is that, again, I get it when the conversation used to be very relevant. I think that it's good to have, after you've really hit market, you have your data,
yes.
You know your costs, exactly where some money you might needs to go. Like you're basically doing an audit post validation. Because if you're constantly preparing ahead of time, it's almost like you're trying to enter a market under your framework. I don't know what I don't know without the customer.
Exactly. You don't know what will happen, I'm really more into P&L rather this plan, because I think it's very necessary to have a very good idea of the P&L, what can be your profits, what will be your costs, and then with that you can run a company more easily than planning to see what will happen in 3 years according to your VP. But
that's so. I hope everybody listening, like, that's if they're thinking of a business plan, do a P&L, which means you're already in the market. Do a P&L business plan. So much better. Absolutely. Stéphane, this was incredible. I really appreciate having you on, and with everybody listening, we'll definitely guide them. It'll be also in the show notes, and let people know, they can go to Clubbing TV on Insta, and they can look up Clubbing TV online, and in all the different markets, clubbing.life, and and of course connect with you, or they'll connect with you through the platforms. But incredible what you're doing, and again, the adaptation of constantly doing it, of constantly innovating at each step, and really to expand on the mission. So I give you a lot of credit. And then also with the podcast that we're doing here with On Top of the Covers, you're welcome back on anytime, and you want to discuss like another revolution taking place, which will probably be in about 6 months, within music, probably tomorrow. You're more than welcome to come back on the show at any time as well.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me and for this nice chit chat. This could last for hours, because the music industry is really like a passionate thing. It's endless. So yeah, really thank you for having me. It was really a nice chat, and I'm sure we can do that, maybe not in 6 months, but in a couple of years again, and see where we are and what we did and what happened in between, and which platform died, and who's the new big thing happening, or what's the new disruptive technology that's redistributing all the deck of the cards to everyone. And it will be interesting to compare in a few years this conversation with the next one.
Absolutely. That's also a great point, right? 2 years, we'll see what's still afloat.
Exactly.
What has moved completely out of the way. And absolutely, you're welcome back on anytime. And thank you again. And and for everybody tuning in to on Top of the Covers, this early on has been incredible, and we really appreciate it. And it's just another journey, and it means a lot to us, the movement, and to the contribution of music culture, because it's expanding so vast and beyond what was just constrained to these are the sole players. And Stéphane today really brought up some great points about how we're moving in a direction where it allows so many new creators and players, which I hope everybody listening is very excited about, because it just means it opens the door to innovation and creativity and collaboration. And in a lot of ways, more can be more. It doesn't have to be that, it has to come at the loss of anything. We also really want to thank everybody just for giving us feedback and being part of this journey. Please don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Apple. It helps expand our show. We're still at the mercy sometimes of platforms for the discovery engine, but we're also grateful for all the feedback. And of course, you can also follow us on major platforms at We Are Orlove. You can follow myself at Matt Gottesman on Instagram. I answer everybody's texts, DMs, responses, replies, you name it, for like the last 8 years. So that's how we've built that community. And again, be sure to subscribe to Orlove YouTube channel for weekly launches for our web series Under the Covers, as well as exclusive footage from today's show. We love all of you guys, and we're out.